Opposition parties in Nigeria join forces to try and oust the president. Will they succeed, or will their differences force them apart? I'm Imran Garda, and today's newsmaker is Muhammadu Buhari. He's been Nigeria's president since 2015, but Muhammadu Buhari's time in office has been plagued with mystery medical trips abroad and crises at home. So when he announced he was running for a second term, Nigerians were divided. But one thing his decision has done is unite the opposition. In fact, it's brought more than 30 groups together. They call themselves the Coalition of United Political Parties, and they have one goal in mind: to make sure the president doesn't win again. But Buhari seems unfazed. He and his ruling party, the All Progressives Congress, says the opposition is destined to fail. It raises the question, can a coalition that big feasibly work together? That debate in a moment, but first Natalie Perhonen has this report.
Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari is the top candidate in next year's presidential election. He's 75 years old and has earned the nickname Baba Go Slow. He's had one term in office and wants another. It's a profile which the opposition wants people to turn away from. More than 30 parties have banded together to stop Buhari from being the voters' choice in February. They've signed an agreement to form the Coalition of United Political Parties. At the heart of this alliance is the People's Democratic Party, which was in government until Buhari and his All Progressives Congress swept to power in 2015. There's also a new opposition group called the Reformed All Progressives Congress, which split from Buhari's own party this month. Its members say the government has failed to deliver on its promises to the Nigerian people. The opposition has yet to name a candidate, and there's no declaration of what its campaign policies will be. But its members are united on one issue: making sure Buhari's time as president ends in 2019. Buhari originally ran on an anti-corruption campaign, and the president's promising to continue the battle. The African Union has made him its first anti-corruption champion. That's a fight many Nigerians support, with almost 1/3 of people paying bribes when they have contact with public officials. But the slow process of eliminating and investigating corruption has led to frustration about Buhari's ability to deliver change. He has also been criticised for being out of the country for months at a time, governing from London while undergoing treatment for an undisclosed medical condition. But Buhari seems unfazed. He is, after all, now in campaign mode. One area he says his government is delivering on is security. He says the country's northeast, which has been hit by Boko Haram attacks, is in a post-conflict stabilisation phase.
I am happy to inform Nigerians that all other forms of security challenges in other parts of the country are being tackled by our security agencies accordingly.
So will that kind of message and his political intentions for the future be enough to persuade voters that he deserves a second term? Natalie Perhonen, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now from Abuja is Buba Galadima. He's the chairman of the Reformed All Progressives Congress, which split from the ruling party to join the opposition. In London, we have Kayode Ogundamisi. He's a political commentator specializing in Nigerian affairs. And completing our panel is Philip Idaiwo. He's the chairman of the UK chapter of the ruling All Progressives Congress. Gentlemen, good to have you on the Newsmakers. Buba Galadima, let me begin with you. Tell me, sir, why you split from the president?
Well, let me first tell you my antecedents. I was one of the few people who had been with Mr. President for the last 16, 17 years. We brought him into politics, and we have remained with him and promoted a course up to this level. However, and I was also one of the 9 signatories that signed the formation of the APC at its initial stage as one of the national secretaries of the merging political parties that gave birth to the APC. I'm also a member of the board of trustees of the APC. I'm also a member of its national caucus. These are my credentials. We had a reason why we formed the APC, to run a better democratic government under the rule of law and transparency, fight corruption, rejuvenate Nigeria's economy. However, 3 years into our administration, all these things that I have mentioned had become a lost dream. Therefore, having made the sacrifice to form this party, people like me cannot stay idly on the sidewalks of history and allow my country drift into collapse by nepotism, by corruption, and by misgovernance.
Right.
This is why we took the bull by the horn and tried to form the reformed APC just in case our efforts will yield the result, unite our country, and so far I want to report that it has received a tremendous support and solidarity
allow me to come in here, sir.
From all men and women.
I have to give the others on the program a chance here. I want to get Philip Idaiwa to respond to this. So, Philip, we have somebody who's a founding member who was close to Buhari saying, we trusted the man, we put the man in power, he hasn't delivered 3 years on. This is why we have to take drastic action. How do you feel about that, Philip?
Well, first of all, let me send my greetings to Mr. Galadima, and to say that listening to him speak about all these contributions to the formation of our party, the All Progressives Congress, he should receive accolade for all of those contributions and efforts. But I have to say that listening to him, he comes across to me as an elder statesman who, along the line, was following a human being, without the focus on an ideology. Now, my understanding of political engagement, and as a political activist and a member of the All Progressive Congress, is this: that the reason APC exists is to shift the movement, the gaze away from the previous rut of political possibilities that face our country. The ruling party in the past, the PDP, was clearly a party that was bent on running Nigeria aground. APC was formed, as Mr. Galadima said, to refocus Nigeria to the path of national development and national morality. For him, 3 years, just 3 years on, to say that he lost faith, in a man, not in the party. He lost faith in a man.
And I'm going to give him a chance to respond to that.
It comes clearly across to me that he didn't have an ideology. Rather, he believed in the human being.
Fair enough. And I'm going to give Mr. Galadima a chance to respond. But I want to bring in Kayode for the moment. Kayode, we have almost 40 political parties uniting in opposition to Buhari, including his former colleagues and friends such as Buba. Is it going to work? Is this going to oust Buhari?
Let me correct you. We have 40 political parties on paper. But if you're an ardent follower of Nigerian politics, out of those 40 political parties, you probably just have 39 briefcase parties who are appendages of the PDP or the APC. These parties do not exist anywhere in Nigeria. They exist on the registrar of the Independent National Electoral Body, which is the body that conducts Nigeria's election. So the political parties are there in name. An example, an election was just conducted in a state in southwest Nigeria called Ekiti State. 39, almost 40 parties took part in the election. 39 parties had 1% of the votes. The remaining percentage was shared between the ruling PDP and the APC. So as a coalition, it is not a threat to Buhari. But what is a threat to Buhari is the fact that within his political party, there are very active members who are close to him who are pulling out of that of his party, and there are people within his own party, the APC, who are not pulling out, but who are, of course, acting as spoilers within his party for whatever reasons they choose to be. So right now, to judge whether it's a threat to Buhari will depend on the candidate the opposition party, the main opposition party, the PDP, presents to the Nigerian people. Clearly, people are not happy with the Buhari administration, people within his parties and outside his party, especially when it comes to the way he has handled security in the middle belt and central, not central.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that in a moment, certainly.
So
okay.
I don't think this coalition is a big threat.
Okay. Okay, Kayode, let me come in here. Let me get a response from Buba Galadima, because so we're having you saying you don't think the coalition is a big threat. Let me ask you, Mr. Galadima, to respond to both gentlemen. We have Kayode saying this coalition isn't going to be a big threat. We have Philip Idaiwo saying, listen, maybe you have a problem with the man and not the party. Maybe this is just a personal difference you have with President Buhari because you gave him 3 years to fix everything, and that's not long enough.
Well, the truth of the matter is that one vote can make a difference. One vote can produce the president of the United States of America, China, or India. One vote. And all these parties are known to the law. They are known to the Electoral Commission. We don't believe that 40 votes minus 40 votes cannot make a difference. That is to say that. Two, I want to tell you that the government which we formed has performed woefully, and is because we campaigned on certain promises, and these promises are not delivered to the electorates. This is why there is this disenchantment, there is this disillusion, there is this dissatisfaction across our country. And it is only men and women of goodwill and courage that must be able to come out and say, me having made a sacrifice of my life, arrested and detained 38 times, tried for treason because of this movement. We had, as you know, certain principles why we follow General Buhari, but all those principles have been thrown into the dustbin. All our ideas about running a democratic, principled, and a government under the rule of law had been bastardized. Therefore, it is our view that we placed our integrity on this. Therefore, we cannot be there when the ship will wreck. And they say, why didn't you say anything while the ship was going adrift in the mid-seas?
Okay.
That is the issue.
Okay, so Philip, the ship is
sinking.
sinking.
The issue before the country.
Okay, Philip,
okay, hold
on for a second, sir.
And that Kayode, my friend.
Right. Okay, okay, fine. Respond to Kayode then, if you can, very briefly, please, sir. Respond.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that we won election on certain promises to the Nigerian people. We have not delivered on those promises. And me, as a principled and somebody of integrity, cannot sit idly and watch this ship adrift.
Okay.
Therefore, we had come in to rescue the situation. We had come in to reform the party. And if we refuse to reform, you know that the nation can throw us out of power.
Okay.
And those who have held the position should have to account for their misdeeds.
Okay,
because we promised to deliver 3 years into our rule, we have not seen anything tangible on which we can campaign again for the success of Mr. President or the party which we formed.
Okay, hold your horses, Kayode. Philip Idaiwo, add to all of that the man is 75 years old and he hasn't been well. That's something that's really upset a lot of people because they feel, why go for another term? You've not been well. You're not the youngest person. Make space for someone else.
Well, I mean, true, the man is 75 years old, but as to being well or unwell, I think that if you compared the president's health his physical capabilities and looking at him over the past couple of months, you will realize and recognize and you will agree that he looks very fit. I don't think he looks in any way sick. When he was sick, he came over to the United Kingdom and got treated, and he stayed under his doctor's advice. I think that the man at this point in time, that is Mr. President, looks well. He looks strong, he looks healthy, he is not feeble. Now, I think that if I may go back to Mr. Galadima's statement, I think that having sat down with other co-believers and contributed to the formation of a political party that was set on certain core ideologies, that of recovery Nigeria, I think that for you to at this point in time, to say that you cannot, on the basis of integrity, keep quiet and not speak out, and whilst doing that, you decided to move out and team up with the group of individuals who for 16 years and plus sat down and superintended over the plundering and destruction of our country. I think that it does not sit, they don't just sit well, they don't sit at the same table, they cannot sit down together and hold a meaningful discussion that you can call, that you can say is based on national development, on national pride, or on nationalism. I think, as I said earlier, that it does appear to me that your disagreements and your differences with Mr. President, has colored the passion with which you came to join other patriots to form the APC.
Okay, I want to drill down at one of the very hot button issues. Okay, Buba, Buba, hold on for a second. I'm going to give you a chance to respond. I want to drill down to one of the...
I want to say that the Speaker...
You can come in if you want to.
I just wanted to say that the Speaker is a stranger. He does not know what is happening in Nigeria. He has no idea
you cannot say that, Mr. You cannot say that. You cannot say that. I refuse to accept that from you, Mr. Galadima. I'm not a stranger in Nigeria, and I'm not a
political movement.
No,
you don't know anything.
No,
please, you are in Europe. You are not on the ground. We are on the ground.
You are in
the
CPC.
Man has not delivered on our promises to the people. And those people who you call misfits, with whom I am sitting, are credible people. Today, as I speak to you, every thief, every rogue, every armed robber, every criminal has migrated into the APC, therefore left all the other good people of courage afloat elsewhere in other political parties. And nobody in Nigeria could call me could say, I am not a man of integrity, a man of honor, a man of foresight, and a man of courage. We will team up with our colleagues wherever we may find them to make sure that our country does not go ablaze. This is the situation. We are talking to people in diaspora who have no idea whatsoever of what is on the ground here. The killings, the marginalization, the nepotism, the high-handedness, and the dictatorship that is going today
bear with me for a
in
second.
our country.
You're talking about what's happening on the ground, right? The anti-Buhari alliance isn't the only thing the president has to worry about.
Yes.
Let's mention what's happening on the ground. In recent months, hundreds of predominantly Christian farmers have been murdered by herdsmen from the mainly Muslim Fulani ethnic group. In fact, some say the threat...
No. That is also
Okay, let me...
I say that may not be true.
Nomadic herders and farmers have been clashing.
Buhari must take responsibility.
Buba,
just hold on.
I'm about to address a question to Philip and talk about the responsibility of the APC. You might actually agree. So we have this situation happening in the Middle Belt. Hundreds are dying, thousands are displaced. It's been happening for a long, long time. Philip, let me ask you very directly. Has the president failed his people in failing to adequately tackle this situation between herders and farmers?
Well, I think, first of all, the challenge, the issues going on in the Middle Belt is very sad, very painful for a Nigerian and anybody for that matter to see the level of killings and destruction of properties, to see the brutality being unleashed on innocent people, on children, on women. It's not something that any Nigerian, regardless of their political persuasions or of their religion, should be proud of or should be happy about. It is very saddening. Now, has the president failed on his responsibilities? I think that in terms of security provisions, yes, there are a lot of challenges. They are massive. At this point in time, you have a country that is in turmoil at various points. You have the Boko Haram insurgency that has been largely put down. You have community killing themselves in the South region, Akwa Ibom State, for instance. You have the kidnappings that is heightened in the states like Zamfara. And of course, you have this problem that is going on in the Middle Belt. Now, it is the question of how much could be done at any point in time. I think that
do you feel enough's being done?
Looking at it. Yes, when you say is there enough being done, I think something is being done. Okay. But I think that also in terms of what is being thrown at this, I think something is being thrown at it.
Okay.
In terms of information management and empathy, I think that this is where we have problems.
Okay, Kayode, they're trying their best, even though it's a mess in the Middle Belt. Yes. The federal government's trying its best. Do you accept that and believe that?
I think you asked a direct question, and there's a direct answer to that. The answer is no. The president has failed as the president and commander-in-chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces to protect Nigerians from all sides of the divide in north-central Nigeria. And this is not just the farmers alone. Even the Fulani herdsmen, who are Nigerians and have a right to be protected, have not been protected. So everyone affected by this communal crisis that has been painted as being religious or being ethnic are victims of the incompetence of the federal government of Nigeria. The president was not elected to be president to take charge of just Boko Haram alone. The numbers of people being killed has shown that a security architecture is not going very well enough to protect Nigerians. Having said that, the question, what I was trying to say to you is that what will make Buhari get unelected are not the coalition of politicians, but how Nigerians feel in terms of the economy today. If they feel better today, then he's going to get re-elected. If they feel more secure, he's going to get re-elected. But right now, the signs are that Nigerians are not have a lot of confidence in Buhari. Are they going to give him another chance in 2019? That is for Nigerians to decide, because right now, the opposition party and the coalition and even aggrieved member of his own party are having coalitions with the same people who led Nigeria to where Nigeria is today. Okay. The same failed 16 years of the PDP and a lot of... And I don't see a coalition of an angel with those
That's an accusation that's been made by both you and Philip. So, Buba, very finally, Buba Galadima, why are you teaming up with the same people that got Nigeria into the mess that it's in right now? Final answer from you, please, sir.
Who are those guys? All the people who got Nigeria or wrecked Nigeria are within the ruling party today. They are the people running the government. Tell me any member of this government that is not a product of the PDP. All of them. These people who are coming together with me are patriotic Nigerians who could not keep quiet when they see anything going wrong. That was why they left the PDP at its height of governance and to assist Buhari to become president. If they see that Buhari is not delivering on the promises that we made to the people, that he will secure Nigerians, that he will protect life and property of individuals, which is the primary responsibility of every government, they have the right again to revolt and also say enough is enough until we find what a decent country, a decent person who will rule this country. And I want to make a correction that killings are not going only in north central Nigeria. No, killings are going all over Nigeria. Kidnappings are going all over Nigeria. More people are being killed in Zamfara of northwestern Nigeria than all the parts of Nigeria put together. It has not been addressed. It was reported recently within this week that over 650 military men were slaughtered in Yobe, that about 7 trucks full of military people were slaughtered in Borno. This issue of killings is all over. Kidnapping is all over. Theft is all over. And all the bad people in Nigeria have now migrated to the APC. This is why we have a grudge. We thought we could run a purified government based on the rule of law. This government does not believe in the rule of law because people that were granted bail by even the courts were denied such rights. Is it jungle justice we are running? Is this what we told Nigerians that we are going to do? It is no.
Okay, and the dynamics are fascinating as the APC splits, as the organizations and these different political parties come together. We'll be watching Nigeria very closely in the build-up to the 2019 election. I appreciate you all taking the time to come together for this important discussion. Buba Galadima, Kayode Ogundamisi, and Philip Idaiwo, thank you very much for joining us here on The Newsmakers. Still to come on The Newsmakers, protests break out in Chicago after another black man is shot dead by the police. Heavy-handed and racist, or self-defense? And Kenya bans the production of charcoal to save its environment, but will it end up only hurting the poor? It's another case of a black man shot dead by police in the US, and once again, it's led to protests. The victim was 37-year-old Harith Augustus, known as Snoop the Barber. Despite it being legal in Chicago to carry a weapon, authorities say they approached him because he appeared to be armed. Things quickly escalated as he tried to break away, and seconds later, Augustus was dead. Now the people of Chicago are crying foul, demanding the officers be investigated. Take a look.
We tired of being peaceful. We've been peaceful. I've been peaceful. Lord knows I'm one of the most peaceful activists in this city. But I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Especially when it's going on in my neighborhood. I eat at Jeffrey sub. That could have been me.
The crowds afterwards were very, they were combative somewhat to the police also, throwing things. I know that they're very passionate about things that happen in the community, especially when it's dealing with the police. But it got a little bit out of hand. Several arrests were made.
Well, joining me now from Chicago is community leader and activist Jamal Green. He's currently running as a candidate for the mayor of Chicago. And in Miami, we have John Cardillo. He's a former officer with the NYPD and is now a TV presenter. I thank you all for joining us on The Newsmakers. John Cardillo, let me start with you. Was the killing of Harith Augustus, the man they called Snoop the Barber, was it justified?
Oh, absolutely. The body camera video shows somebody clearly and illegally armed. That individual resisted the police, and on that same video clearly reached for a firearm, and that was about the most textbook use of deadly force I've seen by the police in a long, long time. All he had to do was comply, put his hands up. If he complied with the police, he'd be alive today. Instead, he tried to draw a weapon on them. And as we say in the law enforcement world, if you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. He decided his own fate. He was shot because of his actions and his actions alone.
And John, if you were in the same situation as a police officer, would you have shot him?
Absolutely. I've been in that position. My unit used to look for robberies, illegal guns. Those police officers were acting in concert with the Supreme Court decision. Terry v. Ohio allowed them to pat down someone's clothing if they saw a shape consistent with a firearm. They did. The individual resisted and attempted to draw that firearm. Absolutely, I would have fired.
Jamal Green, when you hear John defending the killing of Harith Augustus, how do you feel about that? And is there any sense, in your opinion, to what he's saying?
So I understand what he's saying about him grabbing the waist, but we don't know what he was grabbing for because that's not as clear. But there's so many other questions that need to be answered before we determine. John, listen, John, you had your chance. So there's so many other questions that need to be answered in regards to this police shooting case. So why were they approaching him in the first place, right? What was that conversation like with that first police officer? And why did those other two police officers immediately grab him and be the aggressors in a situation? We need to hear that audio, all right? We saw a video with no audio. We need to have all of the evidence before we make a decision on what's justified or not. We got to have a further conversation about why police officers are the aggressors instead of asking questions. Asking him, do you have a FOID card? Do you have a concealed and carry? And getting on that way, because leading with kindness would get you in a better situation than how it ended. And it shouldn't have ended tragically if they would have handled it the correct way.
Okay, John Cardillo. Last year, hold on, John, for a second. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Last year, a Justice Department review found Chicago officers used force nearly 10 times more in incidents involving black suspects than against white suspects.
Definitely.
Is that an irrelevant stat to you, or is there something to discuss there?
I think the stat is in line with the black crime rates and the black on black crime rates in the city of Chicago. Blacks are committing more crimes. They are killing each other en masse. And let me go to my co-guest's comment. The police have a split second to make a decision. They approached him professionally. They tried to engage him in conversation. Through their training and experience as Chicago police officers in one of the worst neighborhoods in the world, that's where they were. They saw a shape consistent with that of a firearm. Few officers in the world know what a firearm under clothing looks like better than Chicago PD officers on street patrol. They attempted to engage him in conversation.
Oh my God.
He evaded them. Well, the video doesn't lie, my friend. He evaded them, and then he clearly put his right hand to where that firearm was. The cops needed to go home alive. If he had a FOID card, if he had a concealed weapons license, hey, when I was a cop, I was twice stopped on the street by NYPD. They drew their guns on me. They didn't know who I was. Somebody called and said a man with a gun. Slow down. Said a man with a gun. You know what I did? I shut my mouth. I put the hands on the wall, and I said, guys, my ID is in my wallet, my left rear pocket. I didn't want to look like Jerry Rice doing a spin and pivot, trying to evade the cops, then reach for my gun, because that's how you get killed.
Okay,
and you should be more concerned with the black-on-black crime rates in Chicago.
I don't want to. So let's address that point, right? Okay, so hold on. I don't want to talk about the actual video anymore now, because we're not all sort of forensic experts on this video. We're not going to unpack the video itself, right? The body cam footage. Let's talk about the point that John made. Jamal, for those who, like John, say that Chicago's problems run deeper than the police, and they talk about gang violence, particularly within the African-American community, what John would call black-on-black violence. For those who make that point and try to establish a context within which the cops are operating, do you accept that discussion and that argument?
Not at all. I mean, people like John, and I'm glad he's not a police officer anymore, but they have this whole mindset that black people, they have to aggressively approach black people in communities. Let's ask if that man was white, what that situation would have happened. He just talked about how he was saw a suspect that stayed alive. If he was white, that situation would not have happened. And we talking about the crime in Chicago, you got to talk about the social problems and the issues that are happening in communities, the economics, the education, the mental health, things that we aren't dealing with. And so that does not mean a police officers should be able to use 10 times as much force You just quoted the report. As other cities, they still have the slave catch and patrol model that was in the 1820s, and that have to change. They should be serving the community and making sure that everyone stays safe and talking to people. This man, let me make this clear, this man did not have a record. He was not a criminal. He's never arrested before.
So what? So what? So what? He tried to draw a gun and kill the cops. There's a first time for everything. Maybe he didn't have a record because he hadn't been caught. And your comments are ridiculous. If blacks are committing more crimes...
He had a FOIA card, just not a conceal and carry.
They're going to use force more often. Every criminal started somewhere. Many people don't have criminal records because they've never been caught. But to ignore the fact that black crime rates in Chicago are off the charts. And by the way, that's not John Cardillo's opinion. That's the opinion of the Department of Justice Federal Bureau of Investigation, Uniform Crime Reporting 2016. 2017's abstract is out. The full report will be released in 2 months. It again, when you compare it with U.S. Census data, shows that in certain census tracts in Chicago, neighborhoods, streets, this area where this incident happened, black crime rates are about 50 times what they are in the rest of the nation.
So that means that they're supposed to approach and kill them? Arrest and kill should be the first mindset?
That's the FBI and the U.S. Census. Reconcile the data yourself. I do it all the time on my show. So if the police are using force more often...
So arresting and killing should be the first mindset.
When someone has a gun, your duty is to yourself and the innocent public. This man had an illegal firearm. He resisted the police. He drew for that firearm.
It wasn't illegal.
You seem like
wasn't illegal.
Hold on, let me see. You seem like it was illegal. It was illegal. The minute he tried to draw it on police.
It was not. He had a FOIA card. He had a FOIA card, not a concealed and carry. Was not illegal.
FOIA card gives you
Get
the
your
right
facts straight,
to carry.
John.
Okay.
FOIA card not give you to carry in Illinois.
Okay, so John believes he was going for the weapon,
But it wasn't
which made it
illegal.
Jamal, you don't, right? Again, let me broaden this out into a political discussion now. So, Jamal, as we expand on this, Chicago, in many ways, for many people, is a very unique city. The context within Chicago is very unique for a lot of people. However, Jamal, when we look at Harith Augustus, a lot of people add his name to Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Laquan McDonald.
Yeah.
Do you as well? Is it part of the same trend across the nation to you?
Listen, it's not a question of do we just add this case. I mean, this has been happening all across this country for years now, and this is a problem that needs to be talked about. Police officers are not being held accountable in this country, and we have Jason Van Dyke, who we saw on tape shoot Laquan McDonald 16 times like a dog because he said he had a knife and lunged at him, which came out to be incorrect. And yet Jason Van Dyke, several years later, is still out now, finally about to face trial in September after the Fraternal Order of Police gave him a job as a janitor. So the people and communities all over the country are crying out for police reform and accountability. All right, so every case that happens, whether it is considered justified or not by the policies put in place by the police departments in the local city, that no one cares about that. They care about the fact that they aren't seeing police officers go to jail when they do wrong. And until we have accountability, until we have community policing, then we will never move forward as a country, and people will always be scared and fear for their lives of police. When is it okay to fear for our lives, all right? When is it okay for black people and colors and communities to fear the police? Because right now they do, but it means nothing.
John Cardillo,
Look,
what's so wrong about police reform and accountability?
It's not needed. Jamal just defeated his own argument. He admitted that Officer Van Dyke in the Laquan McDonald shooting is going to be prosecuted. Officer Michael Slager, who shot Walter Scott in South Carolina.
I said the trial is about to start.
Yeah, that means being prosecuted. That's the definition of being prosecuted. Please let me finish.
Yes, that doesn't mean he's going to jail. Doesn't mean he's going to jail.
Going to trial means being prosecuted. If you don't understand that, not my problem. Let me finish. He's being prosecuted. Walter Scott, Michael Slager, who shot Walter Scott, being prosecuted. The officer in Minnesota who shot Justine Damon, I don't hear him complaining because she was a white woman, being prosecuted. This is cut and dry. And Jamal, this is the wrong hill for you to make your stand on. This guy was clearly drawing a gun on the police. You sound like a nice guy. You sound like a sharp guy. This is the wrong case for you to make your stand on. The guy spun around, resisted police, tried to draw a gun. Quite frankly, you're doing your brand and your cause a disservice.
John, let me ask you. John, can I ask you?
Listen,
protesters. Hold on, Jamal. Hold on for a second.
Nowhere.
One more question for John, and I'm going to get you to respond. John, because the protesters are calling for the officer's name to be released, the officer who fired the fatal shot, would you want that as well? It happened with Michael Brown.
No.
Tell me why.
No, because this is mob rule. They want to harass this officer. They want to threaten his family. They want to destroy his life. He's entitled to due process, as is every other American. When you put on a uniform, your constitutional rights don't go away. This police officer saved lives by firing those shots. The guy was drawing his gun. He evaded police. He resisted. I can't stress enough that this is a textbook case that should be used as training in terms of what exactly to do in police academies. My friend Jamal, who's never patrolled for one day, let me just end with this. If Jamal were to undergo a use of force training and with simunitions was put in this position, I guarantee you he would have fired his gun as well, because you are not going to wait to see if the bad guy kills you first. Human nature, human instinct is survival. The police acted legally, justifiably, and appropriately.
Jamal Green.
Okay, so let me be clear. Now, one time did I say it was justified or not? But what we don't have is we don't have all the footage. We don't have all the audio.
You just said it was unjustified the entire
show. John,
Come on,
can I talk?
You're lying now, but now you're contradicting yourself.
What I said there are more questions, John. I said there are more questions that need to be answered. So this is too early to be calling a shooting justified or not. We don't know. I want to know why he was approached. I want to hear that audio. I want to know why those officers aggressively grabbed him in the wrong way, because we have a problem in the city of Chicago where police officers are badly trained when it comes to de-escalation and avoiding conflict.
Do you have a problem in Chicago?
These questions need to be asked.
Do you have a problem in Chicago with young black men killing other black men? Do you have that problem in Chicago?
Listen, we have poverty problems going on across this country. We have social problems and economics and education problems all over this country. Let's start talking about the root cause, because people are killing each other in neighborhoods all across this country. White people are killing each other as well. Let's make that clear. But in our neighborhoods, people are in survival mode. People are in survival mode. There's a lack of investment when it comes to jobs. The black unemployment rate is the highest in Chicago than it is across the country. All right? So let's make that clear. Let's stay on the facts of what leads to violence.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Listen, gentlemen, I'm going to have a bigger panel. Invite both of you on, along with others, to talk about some of the root causes here. I think that's something we need to do on this program very soon. But for the moment, I've got to wrap and I've got to move on. Jamal Green and John Cardillo, I thank you both for joining us here on the Newsmakers. For the majority of Kenyans, charcoal is essential for everyday life. It's a cheap and plentiful fuel used for cooking and keeping warm. So why has the government banned it? Well, they say it's killing the environment and is detrimental to public health. But some say the ban is going to do more harm than good. Most charcoal is used by small businesses and the poorest members of society, who often can't afford to buy cleaner alternatives. So, is this a case of Kenya putting the environment ahead of its people, or is there something else going on? Let's ask our panel. In Nairobi, we have Stephen Mutoro. He's the Secretary General of the Consumers Federation of Kenya. And Renee Olende. She's a Senior Manager for the Food for Life campaign with Greenpeace Africa. Let me start with you, Renee. Thanks for joining us. Do you agree with the ban?
Thanks for having me. Definitely, most definitely, I do agree with the ban, largely because you have to look at Kenya's population futuristically. If you do have a situation where you have degradation of our forests, you have a situation where people are carrying out illegal logging, which are the industrial millers, you have a situation where Kenya is actually struggling because our water catchment areas will be affected, which means that this will actually put pressure on the citizens of Kenya. So there is some truth to putting a ban to charcoal because it does affect our water catchment areas. It's not good for the environment because our forests actually are a really good carbon sink. They hold in the carbon and make sure that we don't have a lot of carbon emissions in our country and of course across the world. So definitely I am a proponent for the ban.
Okay, so Stephen, big picture, long term, yes, there might be short-term pain. It might affect people in the short term, but everybody has to make the adjustment. Long term, the ban is good for the environment, and if it's good for the environment, it's good for not only Kenyans, but everybody else. Tell me why you disagree with that.
First of all, it's not true that we disagree with that, but I think reality is how do you enforce a ban on charcoal without providing options? So our view is simple. First of all, you need to create awareness. It's not common sense, it's not common knowledge for everybody that what we know about health, environmental concerns is something of a primary interest, to somebody who's not able to have an option of that fuel. So we are not opposed. I think we are opposed in the manner the ban was announced, the way it has been enforced. If anything, there's a lot more charcoal, because when you ban a product from the market, what happens is that it goes to the black market and people end up paying more. And if you allow, probably you know about a country called Somalia. The problem with Somalia is more about charcoal, it's a big business. So for us, the question is, how are you going to enforce? What are the options? This is interesting. They are not there.
Okay, good point. So Renee, the blanket ban is a blunt instrument. Why not look for creative alternatives and to maybe make this sustainable, at least in the short term, before you move on to sort of phasing it out?
Well, let me start by saying that alternatives to coal have been in existence even before the ban. You have a situation where you could use briquettes, which is essentially drying and compressing maize cobs, as well as coconut shells, as well as leaves. So these alternatives have been there. So of course, I do actually put some responsibility to the government to make sure there's more public awareness about some of these alternatives, because it's true that not everybody would know. But that said, I think it's high time that we do have this ban take place, because the environment will not save itself. So it's a case of making sure people know that you can use pellets, you can take scraps of paper, old newspapers, and compress those and use them as alternatives to charcoal. Lastly, renewable energy. I mean, look at Kenya. We have wind, we have solar, and we also have geothermal energy. So these actually are available resources that the government should make available to people. But I think everything starts with baby steps. And I think the ban is good because it's hard and fast. To have social change happen, the government needs to be involved in all cases. So in this case, yes, we're for the ban. We're for the moratorium that is stopping illegal logging, in terms of the community forests as well as the gazetted forest locations. We're for complete ban, and I think it's just a case of making sure that going forward, the government makes it less painful for the citizenry. But there are available options, available solutions or alternatives to charcoal, and I think we shouldn't say, please, can we stagger the ban? I think full ban, yes.
So Stephen,
our position is green.
So Stephen, Renee agrees with you. Certainly, Renee agrees with you that there should be education, there should be better communication from authorities such as the government, but she wants the ban first.
But with a lot of fairness, I think Renee belongs to possibly our kind of, what would I call, she does not speak for the people who use charcoal. The problem here is not about availability of options. We have LPG, for example, is an option, but is it affordable? We have paper, the pellets she talks about. She talks about, this is the problem with our country. The people talking about policy have no idea about how to implement that at the level of the detail. So it's about available options. Question is, are they affordable? No, now anybody sane will not want to keep charcoal anyway. And that's what we are saying. Because why would you pronounce a ban that you cannot enforce? That is the question. I mean, since the ban was so-called ban was announced, question is, if she lives in Nairobi, question is, has it really affected,
okay, you've asked,
has it been affected
I
on
need
the
to give
ground?
Renee, I was going to wrap, but I've got to give Renee a final opportunity to respond to that. Renee, you're disconnected from the reality on the ground, according to Stephen. Very briefly, please, ma'am, final answer.
What I will start by saying is that Greenpeace Africa is very connected to the realities on the ground. We have a strong team of partners and our staff who work on the ground. So to say that we're not familiar with the realities of what's happening on the ground is incorrect. What we are proposing is that the government does support the policies that they do have in play. And to say that it means that we should say, let's not put a ban in place, let's look for alternatives. No, the ban is good, but it's just a matter of how do we then take it forward so that over time you have social change. Social change does not begin and in one snap of a finger, everyone adopts a certain way of being. Of course, it takes time for it to happen, but we're definitely for the ban and we will support the government as far as that's concerned in terms of looking at solutions to how that should be upscaled across the board, just the same way we do with the anti-plastics ban, which is a ban of single-use plastics. We're there to support the government. We're very aware of what's happening on the ground.
Stephen Mutoro and Renee Olende, I thank you both for joining us on the Newsmakers. That's all for this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. You can check out more of our stories on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Remember to like, follow and subscribe. Next time, we look at the arrest of bizarre Turkish televangelist Adnan Oktar. Is he an Islamic revolutionary or a dangerous cult leader? Until then, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.